Welcome into the early line here on the SportsGrid Network. Happy Friday. I'm Dubs Anderson alongside the one and only Joe Raineri. Joe, it feels like it was just yesterday that we were catching up, but I haven't seen you since that big Wednesday. We had the Christmas slate in the NFL, plenty of great hoops and plenty of food, no doubt. So, Joe, before we jump into the big trending topics in the sports world, how's the holidays been?
Oh, it's been great, Dobbs. Really, it's been fantastic. It's been really a whole lot of fun. The final couple of weeks of the year, we're trying to get through. I'm looking forward to. I don't know. It feels like 20 bowl games over the next 48 hours. So we got a little something for everybody, including I believe the NHL is back here tonight. So it's a good time of year for sure.
Yeah, plenty on tap, and we're going to do our best to take you around the ground so you can see the very latest and greatest in the sports landscape. So time for a little 7 in 7, the starting 7. Joe, let's start with Thursday night football. The Seattle Seahawks slug it out over Chicago, shut down in an absolute snoozer. It looks like a soccer score. They get the biscuit 6-3 and keep their playoff push alive.
In a word, awful. That's all I got on this game. I don't even know what to say. If anybody actually spent any of their minutes of their life watching this game last night, I apologize. I really do. But I sat here on the show yesterday telling you to just bet the first half of the game, turn it off, go to bed, have a drink, eat something, do anything you want other than being forced to watch the Chicago Bears play football is probably a good idea. But Seattle had to win. Seattle did win ultimately, and now they need Arizona to handle their business coming up against the Rams if they're going to have any shot at making the playoffs. So they did what they had to do, but boy, was that a rough watch last night there, Dubs. My goodness.
Yeah, it really was. The rain continued to pour down. Low scorer, Seahawks, they get the result there. Let's take it to the college hoops, college basketball, men's basketball. Jim Larranaga, this is massive news. Has stepped down as Miami's basketball coach. It was the 14th season at the helm. And I mean, what an illustrious career this was, and just couldn't deal with the times, Joe. That new look, that new, landscape in the college game where you're dealing with name, image, likeness, the portal. It looks a lot different to how it did a good 5 years ago.
Listen, I love the U. Everybody knows. I love Larranaga. I've interviewed him a million times down here. The guy he's great. He's a old school basketball guy. You love him, but at 75 years old, he's 2 years removed from Miami going to its first ever Final Four there, Dubs. But they lost to Mount St. Mary's here just a couple of weeks ago. They're 4-8 on the season. They were 15-17 last year. It's time. It's just unfortunately at this point, the team that he put together here of what I thought was going to be a much better team than they've turned out to be here. And it's just not working. So it's a shame, but at the same time, this is probably 2 years too late. But Larranaga will go down as one of the greatest college basketball coaches ever, especially starting all the way back when he took little-known George Mason to the Final Four there, and he's been here at the U forever. He will be missed, but I think it's time to turn over a new leaf here.
And from the college ranks, let's take it to the pros in the association. Over there in South Beach, the Miami Heat, a lot of buzz this week that superstar Jimmy Butler was looking for a trade, but Pat Riley comes out, Joe, and says, no, this is not going to happen, but didn't say that it wasn't a thing.
No, he didn't. And he said that, we usually don't comment on rumors, but this speculation has become a distraction to the team, and it's not fair to the players and coaches. That was the statement Riley released yesterday on social media. And he says, therefore, we will make it clear we are not trading Jimmy Butler. Okay, but somebody is leaking something to the press, which is why we're continuing to hear it. Now, whether it's Jimmy Butler's agent, or something else is going on here, obviously. And listen, it makes sense for the Miami Heat. The trade deadline is in February. I think everyone knows Jimmy Butler, in all likelihood, it's time. You either move now or you set the franchise back. You got to get what you can get for Jimmy Butler now, because if this goes on any further, Dubs, injuries become an issue with him. And then, of course, his play has diminished, and then he's not worth nearly what you can get for him right now on the market. And so, Pat Riley, it's nice that you're saying that, but the reality is, yeah, you got to move on for Jimmy Butler. And you two are probably about a year or two late in making this move.
Yeah, it could be more to come over there in South Beach for the Miami Heat. 6-time All-Star Jimmy Butler's taken them to the finals on 2 occasions. We'll keep it with the NBA theme. Luka Doncic. We saw Luka out there Wednesday going against Minnesota, sustained that left calf strain, and now looks like the Luka Doncic is set to miss a bit of time. Per Shams here, Luka will be reevaluated in 1 month after sustaining a left calf strain on Christmas Day. So not a great outlook for the young superstar or the Dallas Mavericks star.
Well, I mean, fortunately for Dallas, they've been down this road before without Luka, and you still have Kyrie, you still have Klay Thompson, you still have a plethora of very large and athletic wing players. I think they'll be able to float until they can get him healthy back, maybe February, and then make a run once again to the Western Conference Finals. I think Dallas will be fine. They are actually set up to weather a storm like this with Doncic being sidelined. So I'm not worried about Dallas here. They'll get him back in plenty enough time to make a run again at the Western Conference Finals.
Joe, are we worried about the scoring bonanzas that we've been seeing on the nightly? The Atlanta Hawks had a scrimmage last night against Chicago, 141-133, but that wasn't the biggest wow takeaway. 50 points in the fourth quarter. What is going on?
It's awful. And couple this with the fact that we had a team drop 155 points last night. Like, what are we doing, NBA? Like, what is going on here? Atlanta drops 50 in the fourth quarter to erase a 21-point deficit to come back and win that game against the Bulls. What they're not telling you is the Bulls dropped 44 in the third quarter. So now we're dropping 50 points a quarter, no defense. We're just chucking up threes left and right. It's become unwatchable in many aspects, Dubs. There is no basketball. It's basically a skills competition.
Yeah, not good enough there. Last night we went bowling. We'll turn it to the college football. Arkansas State over Bowling Green, 38-31 to score the 68 Ventures Bowl. We had Kansas State getting it done over Rutgers, 44-41. Dylan Edwards, fantastic performance there. Runs for 196 rushing yards and 2 scores. And Toledo gets it done over Pittsburgh, 48-46. 6 OT, 6 overtimes, Joe. They were going back and forth. I'm not a fan of how this overtime looks, but it was enough for them to get the big victory there for last night with the game above Sports Bowl.
At least they were all competitive, Dubs. I mean, my goodness, look at what the NFL has rolled out over the last couple of days, and look at what the bowl games have been over the last. There's no question college football has been much more entertaining here in these bowl games. And by the way, all 3 dogs covered yesterday. It was a dog bonanza yesterday with a couple of outright wins, in fact, with Toledo and Arkansas State.
The dogs are barking on a Friday, Joe Raineri. Last one I'm going to throw at you. CeeDee Lamb shut down for the remainder of the season. Bad to worse over there for the Dallas Cowboys, getting set to take on the Eagles in Week 17.
Well, yeah, smart move. What are you rolling them out there for? Your season's over, and let them heal up and get ready for next year. So this was, I think, just a matter of time.
Plenty of football talk for your fast start here on a Friday. We're getting set for more action. Week 17 in the National Football League. Joe Raineri always seeing him well, getting set to make us a couple of bucks going into a new weekend of wagering. We're all playing along here. Plenty more coming up on the other side. You're watching The Early Line right here on the SportsGrid Network.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Early Line here on the SportsGrid Network. Dubs Anderson alongside Joe Raineri, and we are talking all things Thursday night football and the big takeaways from what we saw out there last night in Chicago. It was the Seahawks prevailing, wait for this one, 6-3 over the Bears, a scoreless second half. The rain continued to drive in there at Soldier Field, but for the Seahawks, with their season, with their playoff hopes being out of their hands, Joe, they at least did what they could control, and that was getting a tough-fought victory.
That's being nice, Dubs. This was a Thursday night football game the NFL gave us that included 3 field goals and 13 punts. If you're a fan of punting, I got to tell you, this game last night was riveting. It was over the top good. If you're not a fan of punts, this game was awful on so many different levels. I can't even begin to tell you. Yes, it was raining, but both offenses were about as inept as there can be. Now, you expect that from the Bears, but Seattle has, and Geno, ironically enough, have always been better on the road. I think they just, with this win last night, I think they're 6-1 on the road this year. Geno has a harder time playing at home with the 12th man, which is so bonkers to me, but they are better on the road, and ultimately it was a must-win spot for the Seahawks, and they won the game, and really that's all that matters. But this was a 6-3 game at the break. It was raining sideways, yes, but it came out in the second half, and outside of really, I believe that Bears final possession, Dubs, in which, of course, Caleb Williams finished it off with an interception, that was it. I mean, it was played between, it felt like, the 30-yard lines. Nobody got really much closer than that in that second half, so not a great showing, but again, desperation for Seattle. It felt like they knew their season was on the line. That defense showed up last night, and now they don't, unfortunately, hold the keys to their future. They need Arizona to beat the Rams for them to have continue to have a shot going into Week 18 to make the playoffs.
Yeah, taking a look at the NFC West, Rams still sitting up top there with the 9 wins now alongside the Seahawks. So they'd really love to see the Cardinals get that big result. And you highlighted, Joe, if you look at the box scores, the stat sheet, there's really no standout. It was pretty middling passing game. The run game really never got going. Ken Walker didn't even wasn't a go for Seattle. So we saw Zach Charbonnet. He got the 15 carries off the rock with 57 rushing yards. But let's keep it with Caleb Williams, King Caleb Williams. There was so much expectation coming into this season, not only for the Bears, but for the star young quarterback who really wasn't great in his final year at USC. You look at his game and there'd be questions of would it really parallel from the college ranks up to the professional level? And he's shown glimpses that he's a decent quarterback at times, Joe, but he's also shown some massive weaknesses and really making some poor decisions. I know coaching's been a lot to blame with that one. You look at this stat sheet, 16 of 28, 159 yards, but it is that key and critical turnover late in the game that ultimately cost him.
It was, but at the same time, I mean, listen, I'm willing to give. I wasn't a big Caleb Williams guy at USC. I didn't think he should have been the number one pick. I was a big Jaden Daniels fan, and I think we all know how that has eventually turned out here. But coaching matters, and Jaden Daniels ends up getting, Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator. And Caleb Williams, by this time next year, will be on his, second, third head coach, second, third offensive coordinator. He's only been in the league a year. So he didn't get it done last night. But, prior to that interception, they had a fourth down that he had to complete to keep the drive alive on the play prior to the interception. And you saw him in the conditions running for his life once again, completed that fourth down pass in just unbelievable fashion. And that's what he's capable of doing. The problem is if you can't protect a rookie quarterback and he's getting sacked at, I think last night, again, they set the record for the franchise and the amount of times the quarterback has gotten sacked on a year. I mean, that's the Bears. That's what you're dealing with. So unfortunately for Caleb Williams, congrats, you're the number one pick in the draft. Unfortunately, it was the Chicago Bears that you landed with.
Poor Caleb Williams and the Bears, grim times in Chicago, but maybe a bit of optimism there down the road. And for the Seattle Seahawks, it's a pretty good season for them, Joe. I had no expectations. They've already rattled off the 9 wins, potentially making that push towards the playoffs. But you look at the passing game, and last night, a bit of an outlier. The weather was horrendous. Really, no need to try and get it downfield. But what has happened to my guy DK Metcalf? He suddenly has gone from being this massive vertical threat. You put him up against everyone to what's he now? Just helping him with the run game, getting out there and blocking.
I don't know. I mean, the guy is just a physical beast and a total mismatch waiting to happen. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like they have figured out how to utilize him in the best way, shape, or form. But he does start fights in the middle of the field and gets flags thrown like nobody's business. We've seen that a lot from him. But, Jackson Smith-Njigba is without a doubt, the number one receiver on this team. The kid is just out of Ohio State, really starting to come into his own. And there really is, with those two guys, and then you got Lockett in the slot. There is no reason for this team not to be throwing, 300 yards a game every game with those guys. They just have not figured it out offensively. But don't forget, rookie head coach, defensive-minded guy. It's no wonder why in his first year, the defense much better than what the offense has been. They got to figure that out. And I think they will. But the question is Geno Smith the answer moving forward? That's the question they're going to have to figure out.
What do you think, Joe, personally? I mean, Geno Smith, they wrote him off. He never wrote back at times this season. I mean, he can get it down there with the best of them. He's a proper gunslinger, if you will. He can use the wheels. He can get out there and scramble. But, just like Caleb Williams makes a couple of, silly decisions at the wrong points in these games and ultimately cost his side probably a couple of victories. Is Geno a guy, if you take the contract out of the equation, that you'd be excited to build around for the next 2-3 years?
34, right? Coming to the end of this contract that they ended up giving. He's not exactly blazing a path to the finish line here. So we're going to have to see. But again, I put a lot of this on the offensive play calling as well.
Yeah, it really is. Thursday Night Football is a wrap. We'll discuss the Seahawks outlook when we return. Stick with us.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Early Line here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Dubs Anderson alongside Joe Raineri, getting your Friday off to a flying start. And before we jump in to more Seattle Seahawks talk, Joe, got to get your thoughts from Wednesday. The numbers have come across: viewership, NBA stacking up against the NFL, 2 games in the National Football League, a 5-game slate in the association. Some of the best basketball that we've seen all week, but it still wasn't enough. Taking a look at the average viewers here, we had right around, 5 million for every NBA game, 24 million on average watching both football games. Is that a sign of the times? Is it all about the NFL? Does that move the needle just a little more than what we've seen from the basketball?
Oh, well, we know. I mean, the NFL is king. It always will be here as opposed to the NBA. But the NBA has done themselves absolutely no favors. Although, kudos. That Golden State Lakers game was, right, one of the most watched NBA games that we have seen in a very long time. But, that coincides with the fact that the football games were both duds, and that was the next thing on. That day there, Dubs. I think that was the Golden State Lakers game was on right after that, whatever that was, with the Ravens and the Texans, where a team scored 2 points the entire game. They actually scored less points than the Bears did last night, if we can believe that. And so it would make sense that people are flipping the channel to, well, the game that would be on, which would have been the Lakers and Golden State. But all things being equal, it's not even close. The NFL rules over the NBA, and it always will at this point because the NBA game is getting worse. And if it wasn't LeBron James on the screen, I don't know how many people would have hung around and watched that. I don't think the NBA has any clue as to what they're going to do when LeBron James, who's 40 years old now, how long do they think he's going to play and draw eyeballs here, Dubs? At some point, they're going to have to pass the reins to the next face of the league. And the problem is, Doncic don't want it. The Joker don't want it. Wemby doesn't want to be. So who's the face of the league once LeBron steps down? They got a big problem here.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a similar struggle to Tiger Woods and the PGA Tour. They're still trying to hold that torch. You got to get some bigger profiles coming into this thing. Maybe some young superstars and I guess Anthony Edwards certainly looks like maybe he could be the one. But let's get it back to the football. Thursday night football, Seattle, they get the victory 6-3, low scorer. But taking a look at the NFC West, things do not get any clearer in their path towards the playoffs. I feel like there's been points in the season, Joe, where no team has wanted it. Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals, the 49ers, they've been a dumpster fire, but it's the Rams and Seattle now sitting there with 9 wins apiece. And for the Seahawks, all they can do is win this one and win next week against the Rams. 9-7, plus 550 to take out the NFC West, banking on LA going missing. What do you make of their updated outlook?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways to bet this. If you think that Arizona is going to bounce back and beat the Rams, I would go ahead and then take the plus 550 here for the possibility of Seattle winning the NFC West. But if you think the Rams are going to beat Arizona, don't waste your time. And because once that happens, it's over for Seattle, and it doesn't matter what happens next week in week 18. But that's a shame given the fact that the Seahawks controlled their own destiny just a couple of weeks ago, but a couple of just lackluster performances. And here we are. They're praying that Arizona shows up and takes care of business off of a red-hot Rams team. And Dubs, between you and me here, I just don't see the Rams falling to the Cardinals tomorrow night, given the fact that they've owned them over the last couple of seasons. I mean, it's been all about the Rams have just dominated. Stafford against Kyler Murray, I don't even think it's even remotely close. Head coaching, not even remotely close. So, they got a puncher's chance, but I don't see it happening. I think the Seahawks are a little too late here.
Yeah, it certainly looks like the Rams are rolling. They've won 4 in a row, looking to make it 5, and that could be enough to clinch the division. Could you see anyone coming out of the West, Joe, to make a bit of a playoff push? Could the Rams actually have that upside with that momentum at this time of year? Matty Stafford, when he's on, he looks, as good as some of the best of them in the league still.
Dubs, coaches and quarterbacks matter in the playoffs, and you've got 2 of the best there. Guys that have the ring, have the experience, and are playing and coaching their tails off right now. That young defense has gotten nothing but better for the Rams, and Stafford is playing at an MVP level. They're a dangerous bunch moving forward, that's for sure.
Playing close to a full touchdown Saturday night, playing host to the Arizona Cardinals. We're taking a timeout. NFC outlook and futures when we return.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Early Line here on the SportsGrid Network. Happy Friday, holiday weekend set for a monster weekend in the NFL Association. A bit of hockey getting back into the mix there as well. It's the final Friday of December, Joe. Can you believe that the sports year has gone through this fast?
It's kind of crazy, Dubs. I mean, here we are, right? Getting ready to say goodbye to 2024. Welcome in 2025. It's kind of crazy here, and we still have to get to a national championship in college football with our very first 12-team playoff. It feels like forever since we've seen those teams play, and yet that's coming up. And the next couple of days, right through the new year, college football going to be front and center a lot with the crazy amount of bowl games, and of course, still a lot to be decided on a quest to crown a national championship in college football. So I'm ready for it, but man, where did 2024 go?
Yeah, it's amazing, Joe. I remember it feels like yesterday that we're going into New Year's Eve for the millennium, for year 2000. Yep. All the computers were going to shut down, and it was going to be big doomsday. Never happened, but here we are going into 2025. We're also going into week 17 in the National Football League, so let's take a look at the NFC side of things. A couple of big contenders, the Eagles up top of the East. We've got the Lions, Falcons, and Rams leading their respective divisions right now. And then you've got in the wildcard standings, the Vikings, Packers, Commanders. On the outside looking in, the Seattle Seahawks and Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Joe, no surprises. The Lions sitting up top there. Fantastic record at 13-2. Are they the team to beat coming out of the NFC for you so far?
Well, I mean, look at all those teams in the NFC North. Lions 13-2, Vikings 13-2, Packers 11-4. So we got three teams in the NFC North, basically one in the NFC East that can hold water, and then the Rams. I think the Falcons are a joke. They might be 500 and make the playoffs. That's how ridiculous that division is. But if there is the problem with having three teams from the NFC North means they might devour one another. And it's crazy that we got to this point in the season and we've got a couple of 13-win teams who are going to have to play one another for the possibility of the number one seed up for grabs next week when the Lions finish up against the Vikings. The Vikings, in the meantime, have the Packers this week. The Packers could get their 12th win of the season here. So there is a lot still to be determined, and you've got to wonder who's going to be left standing. Does it go through Detroit? Does Minnesota continue its ridiculous trek here to 14, possibly 15 wins on the season? Lots still to be determined here, unfortunately, in the NFC. I think the AFC is a lot more clearer, but the NFC, to me, you got any one of those teams, number 1, number 3, number 5, number 6. I don't think the Commanders can be taken seriously, although they got 10 wins. I just don't think that defense is championship quality. But my goodness, it's going to be a fun watch come the NFC playoffs because any one of those teams on any given day can beat one another. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah, and if it started today, we'd have the Commanders going into Philly to take on the Eagles. And Joe, taking a look at the current leaders of each division, that'd be the toughest place to go on the road. For Detroit, you've got that dome atmosphere. You're playing on the inside. That's not so bad. Out here, SoFi Stadium, if you were to take on the Rams, that's a big thumbs up. But going into Philly, that'd be a big assignment.
Yeah, no, that is. I mean, when you look at it, Falcons, and that's another thing you got to look at, right? The number 1, the number 3, the number 4, the number 5 seed, all indoor locations, right? All indoor tracks there, which makes it very interesting, an advantage to those teams there because they're built to win indoors, right? The Eagles, the Commanders, Well, they're kind of built to win outdoors, and the Packers as well in that crew. So this is going to be interesting. Any other season, we'd probably be talking about, to have two 13-win teams and an 11-win team out of the same division, the NFC North, is kind of crazy when you think about it here, Dubs.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, and a couple of these teams have really exceeded the betting expectations coming in. And with that, let's bring up the updated odds board. It's the Lions is the shortest price in the NFC, now sitting at plus 170. The Eagles at plus 310, and the Vikings at plus 550. Joe, you look at Minnesota, rattled off 8 on the bounce, looking to make it 9, but I feel like they're still being a little disrespected. Why so?
Listen, the Lions, what makes the Lions so interesting is, they've come so close, right, over the last season or so. They have decimated injuries on the defensive side of the ball. You can't lose Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best top 3 defensive players in the league, and think that you're going to have the same kind of chance that you do. However, when you have an offense that can drop 40 on anybody in any given day, it really doesn't matter if your defense has holes in it, because you are going to outscore anybody that you play. You can, and they do it on a regular basis. So they deserve to be the favorite, but that's the concerning factor with the Lions. They don't, at plus 170, there's some holes on this team, and if the cards fall right, sure, it's going to be advantage Lions. But, I've got a ticket on the Packers at 14-1 from earlier in the season here, where I said the Packers, to me, I like them. If they can finally get it together, and there were some issues with injuries with Jordan Love early, the Packers are an interesting team, especially if they can go into Minnesota and win that game this weekend. Yeah, the Packers are a very dangerous team here, I think, because, again, if it's the Lions they have to go through, well, who knows them better than their division rival, the Green Bay Packers? So it's not like, you'll have to take on a Lions team coming out of a place that maybe you didn't play them this year, or maybe you haven't had a lot of experience against them. If it comes down to the Lions and either the Vikings or the Packers in the NFC Championship, guess what? They know each other better than anything. That should be an amazing situation. But it could very well be the Eagles, provided this concussion with Jalen Hurts, Dubs, gets rectified here at some point where he's okay, because we already know he's missing this week's game against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, the latest I'm seeing there, Kenny Pickett trying to get charged up for a big one coming into Week 17, but with no Jalen Hurts, so that's certainly going to hurt the chances here of the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Joe, you've identified the Packers. It looks like there's still some great value there, sitting at plus 600. But for the outsiders, the long shots, the bettors who maybe want to have a little sprinkle, we see the Commanders, Bucks, Falcons, Seahawks, all north of plus 1,900. Seattle sitting there at 75-1. If I were to ask you, not so much a team, but a quarterback who could find them in a big spot, Daniels for the Commanders, Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, Penix for the Falcons, or Geno for Seattle, what quarterback would you trust in trying to roll with a big upset going into the playoffs?
I still say it's Stafford. I still think Stafford at 10-1 is the best value on the board, given the coach, given the experience, given the ring on the finger already, and given those wideouts. And listen, there's no reason Stafford and company can't go into a dome in Detroit or in Minnesota and beat the snot out of you. I mean, this team is dangerous. The offensive line is healthy. Stafford hasn't thrown an interception in it feels like a year. He's playing at an MVP caliber rate. I would trust Stafford to pull an upset, and at a 10-1 price right now, Baker is hit or miss. Every other, I'm not betting on a rookie in Penix because I think he's going to have his hands full this week against Washington to begin with. So I would say Stafford is the guy, the dark horse here that you may want to consider sprinkling a few bucks on here to end up taking it all down.
There it is. Love it. West Coast, Best Coast, the Rams looking to rumble going into the penultimate week of the regular season. The Lions up top of the NFC odds at plus 170. Time for a quick commercial. We'll meet you back here on the other side.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the early line. Dubs, Anderson and Joe Raineri taking you through the next couple of hours to get you off to a hot start here on your Friday. And Joe, we take it to the men's college basketball scene. Jim Larranaga stepping down as Miami's head coach. This one surfacing yesterday, and we're lucky enough to get a little soundbite from Jim's presser to find out why he won't be going forth in his 14th season at the helms. Let's take a listen.
I'm exhausted. I've tried every which way to keep this going. And I know I'm going to be asked a lot of questions, but I want to answer them before I'm even asked. What shocked me beyond belief was after we made it to the Final Four just 18 months ago, the very first time I met with the players, 8 of them decided they were going to put their name in the portal and leave. I said, don't you like it yet? No, I love it. I love Miami. It's great. But the opportunity to make money someplace else created a situation that you have to begin to ask yourself as a coach, what is this all about?
Wow, there it is, Joe. It's certainly taken a big change over the last couple of years, couple of seasons in college sports, and just a sign of the times. Jim Larranaga didn't want to sort of make that progression, and his job got a lot harder the more that these dollars came into effect.
Well, and he's right, and he did try to hold on when many of his many of his fellow coaches saw the writing on the wall and left. We just saw it happen a week before the season. Tony Bennett in Virginia, he knew that he didn't want to be a part of that kind of situation anymore. He knew he couldn't compete in the marketplace now because, as Larranaga said it, he said, what is this all about? His answer was, college basketball has become professional basketball, in essence, where it's pay for play. And he said he didn't feel that he could successfully navigate this new world here. He was having conversations with agents who were telling him, well, if you can come up with $1 million, 1.1 million, 1.2 million, you'll have your hat in the game. And Larranaga at 75 is like, what am I doing? Like, what is that? I'm here to teach the game of basketball and teach these guys to grow up to be men. And this is where the sport has gone now in college wise, whether it be football or basketball. It's a business now. It's no longer about all the other things. And Coach K saw it, Jay Wright of Villanova saw it, Tony Bennett saw it. You saw all these big-time coaches over the last couple of years. They're like, yeah, no, we're good. We saw it, Saban at Alabama. These guys didn't walk away from the game because they didn't love basketball anymore. They're walking away from the game because what they're seeing, they want no part of. And I don't blame them, because I think this is a total detriment to college athletics moving forward. They let the genie out of the bottle, Dubs, and they have no idea how to get it back in.
And Joe, to that point, the players now solely playing for the name on the back of the jersey, not the one on the front. But how's it going to look in 2, 3, 5, 6 years from now with the way things are playing out? And you look at the curve of this thing, it's a sharp ascent. With the more money, millions and billions of dollars coming into this thing, how's the college sports landscape going to look in 5 years from now?
Well, we just saw the article and the story about the quarterback, former quarterback from Tulane that just signed for $4 million to be the quarterback at Duke. And that's a Tulane quarterback going to Duke. What do you think the going rate is going to be moving forward for an actual quarterback that can play? Not that he couldn't, but it's, if you're getting $4 million to play at Duke, what are you going to get to play at USC? What are you going to get to play at LSU? What's Texas's? What are they willing to pay? There's just no guardrails here, Dubs, which means it's going to be the wild, wild west. And ultimately, there's going to be a handful of teams that can afford to put together championship teams, and then everybody else is going to be playing for scraps.
It truly is unbelievable. That's massive news there. Larranaga stepping down as the Miami men's head coach. You know what I'm going to do this afternoon, Joe Raineri? I'm going to get the old sand shoes out, the training shoes. I'm going to go down to Venice Beach. I think I'm still eligible to get back into some college, some university that may take me, and maybe that's how I can get my big check playing a bit of college sports. Unbelievable. Wild scenes. I tell you what, it's the Wild Wild West over there in South Beach, not too far from your stomping ground, Joe. And the big one coming through this week is the Miami Heat were apparently, per Shams, trying to shop around Jimmy Buckets, Jimmy Butler. He wanted out of South Beach and wanted to find a new destination in which would give him a chance to try and win a championship. So that was the big one coming across there from NBA insider Shams Charania earlier this week. But Pat Riley puts the foot down, says, no, Jimmy Buckets, the six-time All-Star, will not be going anywhere. We usually don't comment on rumors, but all this speculation has become a distraction. Pat Riley, he puts the foot down, says Jimmy is staying in Miami. But for how long, Joe?
It's a matter of time. The trade deadline is February. I'd be shocked if he is still there by the time February gets around here. I mean, listen, now's the time. It's the nature of the business here. I think, and it's Pat Riley. Unfortunately, the headlines have made it so Pat Riley had to address him. He couldn't stay quiet. So what else is he going to say? Of course, he's going to say he's not trading Jimmy Butler until, of course, he trades Jimmy Butler. And I think both sides are on the same page here. Quite honestly, I think Jimmy knows that it's winding down for him. He wants to go play for a contender. And if Miami in the NBA is going to retool, they've got the pieces there with Adebayo and Tyler Hero. They're going to use whatever they can get for Jimmy Butler now to be able to add to that over the next couple of years and restart a new era in Miami basketball. So it's time, and both guys know it. They're just navigating the press right now.
Yeah, it really seems that way. And for Jimmy Butler, he's done a lot for that organization. He's had nothing but success over there playing for the Heat. And to go with that, NBA news and notes, Luka Doncic set to miss another month of basketball, sustain that left calf strain. So will be reevaluated in 1 month after this one coming across. For the Mavericks, not good. They're trying to get things going. Luka came back. He looked fantastic, but now back on the sidelines. So more takeaways, more news and notes coming up on the other side. Stick with us. We're watching the early line.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
They may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the early line here on the SportsGrid Network. We're getting set for more great football. Week 17 slate in the National Football League, and we turn it to Saturday afternoon. 3-game slate, playoff implications. The Denver Broncos rolling into Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Opened at 3, sits at 3, minus 178 there for Joe Burrow and the boys. Can they get it done at home with a healthy total of 49.5, Joe Raineri? Both teams have been pretty strong ATS, but a lot of juice for this one.
It is, but I mean, I don't think it's even close, Dubs, if we're being honest here. I think Cincinnati and their ability to be able to score at will. I mean, Burrow is now what? Has he thrown 3 touchdowns, in 6, 7 straight games now? They are an interesting team. They're a dangerous team. They're an interesting team. And the Denver Broncos have backed themselves into a corner. They still control their own destiny, meaning all you got to do is win this game. You win this game and you're in the playoffs, end of story. If you lose this game, then you have to win next week, and maybe this is the luckiest thing that's happened for the Denver Broncos, is that they're going to be taking on a Kansas City Chiefs team that has absolutely nothing to play for. So if that is the case, then Denver will have to wait until week 18 to give themselves a chance to actually clinch a playoff spot. So they haven't done themselves any favors as of late, but I don't like the matchup for Denver here. Everybody thinks that this is a great defense, and it was at one point. It was carrying this team, but it is not as of late. A lot of holes in this defense. Teams are starting to light them up. They're running out of gas. And I would not want to have a sluggish defense having to stop Joe Burrow and that offense in Cincinnati and put my money on it and hope that they figure it out. They're not going to figure it out. I think Cincinnati rolls them. And I probably would look at the over, Dubs, because Cincinnati's defense can't stop a nosebleed either. So I would imagine we're probably getting some points in that game.
Yeah, it's a hefty total. And, when I was thinking about this game early in the week, I felt like it's all about the Broncos trying to keep this as a low scorer, but looking at the last 5 games, Denver haven't scored any less on their side than 27 points. So suddenly that offense is starting to put up a few. And Bo Nix, a lot of talk this season, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, but Bo Nix has at times looked like he may be the best rookie of the class. At other times, it sort of gets a little stagnant with that offense. But what do you make of Bo's play? First year at the helm for the Denver Broncos have really had no expectations. 5.5 was their win total coming in for this year after losing Russ.
Playing with house money, right? Rookie quarterback who was, I believe, the last quarterback chosen in the first round there. A guy that has, and I'll never forget, Bill Parcells, one of the all-time, I mean, he had so many great statements over the years, but he had always said when he was recruiting quarterbacks out of college, he always only looked at the guys that played a ton of college football. He wanted quarterbacks that had the most experience, the most snaps. He would have never drafted Richardson in Indy, right? Well, nobody played more college football than Bo Nix over 5-6 years, Dubs. He was in the college game forever. And he had, I believe, the most starts, or at that when the season started, or at least during the draft. Nobody had played more college football than he did, except for, I think, Dylan Gabriel now at Oregon, of all places. So I think this is what you're seeing. He's much more prepared for the NFL, even in his rookie season, with the right head coach. And I think that's what you're seeing with Bo Nix. And that's why you're not seeing it with Anthony Richardson, who has a total of 1 year of starting quarterback college football experience under his belt. And then he was thrown in under center for the Indianapolis Colts. And it's a shock that has been a total train wreck. Not a shock that Bo Nix is finding success here with Sean Payton.
Yeah, they're just going to need one more big performance out of Bo Nix, and that could be enough to cement that playoff berth, and it truly would be fantastic. They've got the 9 wins, taking that 7th spot, so still holding the wild card position. Taking a look at these numbers to make the playoffs for the Cincinnati Bengals at plus 1,800, then to take out the AFC title at plus 9,000. So a couple of big prices, a couple of big outliers, but if you get either team in that postseason, could be a very, very tough out. For Joe Burrow, he's doing everything in his power. Raineri, yes or no question, silly or not, he's at 200-1. If the Bengals could find a way into the playoffs, is Joe Burrow live to take out the MVP, or am I being silly?
No, it's a 2-man race. It's actually a 1-man race.
There it is.
Yep.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
Like, they may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.